The Dark Night of the Soul
by St. John of the Cross. Book 2, Chapter 13. Of other delectable effects which are wrought in the soul by this dark night of contemplation. This type of enkindling will explain to us certain of the delectable effects which this dark night of contemplation works in the soul. For at certain times, as we have just said, the soul becomes enlightened in the midst of all this darkness, and the light shines in the darkness. This mystical intelligence flows down into the understanding, and the will remains in dryness. I mean, without actual union of love. With a serenity and simplicity which are so delicate and delectable to the sense of the soul, that no name can be given to them. Thus the presence of God is felt, now after one manner, now after another. Sometimes, too, as has been said, it wounds the will at the same time, and enkindles love sublimely, tenderly, and strongly. For we have already said that at certain times these two faculties, the understanding and the will, are united, when the more they see, the more perfect and delicate is the purgation of the understanding. But before this state is reached, it is more usual for the touch of the enkindling of love to be felt in the will than for the touch of intelligence to be felt in the understanding. But one question arises here, which is this: why, since these two faculties are being purged together, are the enkindling and the love of purgative contemplation at first more commonly felt in the will than the intelligence thereof is felt in the understanding? To this it may be answered that this passive love does not now directly strike the will, for the will is free, and this enkindling of love is a passion of love rather than the free act of the will. For this heat of love strikes the substance of the soul, and thus moves the affections passively. And so this is called passion of love rather than a free act of the will, an act of the will being so called only in so far as it is free. But these passions and affections subdue the will, and therefore it is said that if the soul conceives passion with a certain affection, the will conceives passion. And this is indeed so, for in this manner the will is taken captive and loses its liberty, according as the impetus and power of its passion carry it away. And therefore we can say that this enkindling of love is in the will, that is, it enkindles the desire of the will, and thus, as we say, this is called passion of love rather than the free work of the will. And because the receptive passion of the understanding can receive intelligence only in a detached and passive way, and this is impossible without its having been purged, therefore, until this happens, the soul feels the touch of intelligence less frequently than that of the passion of love. For it is not necessary to this end that the will should be so completely purged with respect to the passions, since these very passions help it to feel impassioned love. This enkindling and thirst of love, which in this case belongs to the spirit, is very different from that other which we described in writing of the night of sense. For though the sense has also its part here, since it fails not to participate in the labor of the spirit, yet the source and the keenness of the thirst of love is felt in the superior part of the soul, that is, in the spirit. It feels and understands what it feels, and its lack of what it desires, in such a way that all its affliction of sense, although greater without comparison than in the first night of sense, is as nothing to it, because it recognizes within itself the lack of a great good which can in no way be measured. But here we must note that although at the beginning, when this spiritual night commences, this enkindling of love is not felt, because this fire of love has not begun to take a hold, God gives the soul, in place of it, an estimative love of himself, so great that, as we have said, the greatest sufferings and trials of which it is conscious in this night are the anguished thoughts that it has lost God, and the fears that he has abandoned it. And thus we may always say that from the very beginning of this night the soul is touched with yearnings of love, which is now that of estimation, and now again that of enkindling. And it is evident that the greatest suffering which it feels in these trials is this misgiving. For if it could be certified at that time that all is not lost and over, but that what is happening to it is for the best, as it is, and that God is not wroth, it would care nothing for all these afflictions, but would rejoice to know that God is making use of them for his good pleasure. For the love of estimation which it has for God is so great, even though it may not realize this, and may be in darkness, that it would be glad not only to suffer in this way, but even to die many times over, in order to give him satisfaction. But when once the flame has enkindled the soul, it is wont to conceive, together with the estimation that it already has for God, such power and energy, and such yearning for him, when he communicates to it the heat of love, that with great boldness it disregards everything, and ceases to pay respect to anything. Such are the power and inebriation of love and desire. It regards not what it does, for it would do strange and unusual things in whatever way and manner may present themselves